There has probably never been a more appropriate time for Europe to turn its attention to this somber topic of the trade in small arms. A resolution on an arms trade treaty will most likely be put forward in the first committee in the United Nations later this year. And if we can mobilize enough people and lobby our governments, then we have a good chance to create the moral momentum that will turn that treaty into law.
Commonly used terms small arms and light weapons usually refer to weapons that are cheap to buy, easy to carry, easy to use, easy to disguise, and easy to transport and move around with. These weapons range from revolver to pistol, rocket-propelled grenades, mortar, AK-47, hand grenades, and landmines. Increasing availability of small arms and light weapons in Africa is a serious threat to the life and development, hence a worldwide concern. Small arms and light weapons trade is a growing global enterprise which has reached 600 million in circulation, 30 million of which are in Africa. And according to the Small Arms Survey, this turnaround in monetary terms comes to 4 billion trade per year.
Africa is an importer of weapons, not a manufacturer. There is some manufacture of ammunition, but not a huge amount of weapons. And that's important to note as we're talking about the international arms trade, that Africa is an importer. It's very hard to get a handle on what the exact numbers are, but looking at UN trade statistics, 98% of imported ammunition comes from outside Africa, and similarly 99% of small arms. We do need an arms trade treaty globally, and this would prevent arms transfers where they might undermine social and economic development or be used for violations of human rights, international humanitarian law. Oxfam is part of the Control Arms campaign. One of the things that we're doing at the moment is asking parliamentarians to sign up to a declaration, and I have this in 3 languages, which I'll put at the side, basically urging governments to agree an arms trade treaty. And I would support calls from others.
EC regulations are also the most powerful form of international law. And in this case, as very powerful transnational regulations, they've had a tremendous impact on transnational organized crime. States such as Bulgaria, Moldova, and Serbia, which had a significant number of suspect air carriers and wished to accede to the European Union or access the internal market when it comes to civil aviation, must comply with EU-mandated air safety standards, or they don't get in. It's a matter of money.
Despite the legitimacy and the purpose of the protocol, its implementation in best practice and model legislation entails a lot of risks and even threats for the European small arms and light weapons industry. European and most of the national legislation are already very strict and in line with the purpose of the protocol. Such legislation is already efficient and effective, notably because it is controlled. By reinforcing all the constraints in Europe, there is a risk of destroying the European industry. That will not reduce the illicit traffic of small arms and light weapons. That is not due to the European industry. There is a whole bunch of other small arms and light weapons.
Corruption and ill discipline amongst state security forces. This has been mentioned. How do we know that this is a problem? Well, we know it's a problem because we've actually gone on the ground and looked at the head stamps of ammunition. And about 95% of ammunition has head stamps. You couldn't tell it from the initial part of the movie, but at the head stamp of the weapon are some numbers, a year and perhaps the manufacturer and other information. And we know about 90 or 95% of this information, and we have it cataloged in a database. And in looking at several thousand rounds of ammunition in northeastern Uganda, northwestern Kenya, and southern Sudan, we have seen that many of these, sometimes up to 30 or 40%, come from the state security forces, and they are manufactured in Kenya or in Uganda, and this is significant, and the states themselves are taking note of this right now, and they recognize that it's being leaked, and sometimes they are killing the very people that are there to protect the populace.
South. There is a need, therefore, to take preventive action, in particular, tackling illegal supply and demand. We have heard all this before, and I'm glad to see that we actually managed to put this in an European Union document. It's rather reassuring to see that we get it right, at least a document. The strategy refers to specific tools such as controls on exports of conventional weapons, we have heard this, and also it says that attention should be paid to the enormous accumulation of small arms stockpile in Eastern and Southeast Europe, and the ways and means by which they are disseminated in Africa. And they refer to problems such as illegal brokering and transport, means of transport.